Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent computer role-playing game. This time I'm taking a look at a sort of retro-styled RPG, Pillars of Dust. Developed by Retro Games and published by Something Classic Games, it was released on Steam on March 17th, 2020. Pillars of Dust is fundamentally an old-school JRPG-styled game with an NES-era retro feel on graphics and sound. It includes exploration of a tile-based world, a story split into chapters that follows the progress of two main characters, turn-based combat, and a simplified RPG system that allows for advancement of basic stats with experience, acquisition of various consumables, and training and skills to allow for some more variation in combat tactics, as well as a selection of secondary party members from a mercenary guild. In terms of plot, Pillars of Dust is set in the ruins of the land of Illyrika, where civilization has crumbled and fractured. The game is broken into a series of chapters and further split into two paths, one following Prince Carlton, the other following the pauper Greg, each starting in a different town, both troubled by nightmares. Each sets out on their own quest to find the meaning of these nightmares and is essentially ending up on two parallel paths toward the same destination. At the start of the game, you select which of the two characters to journey forth as on that particular chapter, either Prince Carlton or Greg. Once you start a chapter, you are given a series of goals that you can attempt to fulfill for bonuses, generally consisting of a certain number of secrets found, a certain number of chicken nuggets you should gather, and a certain number of orbs or other items you can find. You basically have the whole chapter to fulfill these goals, and they can be used as a sort of yardstick to determine how well you're doing on exploring that particular chapter. After you've entered a particular chapter, it is a pretty straightforward sort of interface. You can maneuver around in each of the four main directions, interact with items, and talk with people with a single button, and open up the character menu, typical of old-school RPGs. Within the menu, you have the option to use items, equip a single piece of gear, review a character's skills, mostly used in combat, review a character's stats, see the progress on the chapter goals, deal with other game options, save the game, or quit. At this menu, you can also see the number of chicken nuggets that you found, which serve as the currency in this game, as well as the number of special cheese that you found, which can be turned into one of the NPCs you encounter for rewards. Each character has several basic stats. Primary are hit points and action points, representing the amount of damage a character can take during combat, and the amount of points they can use for skills and spells. There are then four main ability scores: attack, that governs damage dealt; defense, that governs how much damage you receive; agility, that determines how swiftly you move in combat; and SPC, which I believe governs skill effectiveness. There's also a crit percentage that governs the chance of a critical hit. During exploration, you can attempt to activate just about everything, which can be important to find secrets. On most things, you either get no feedback or a quick message, but occasionally you may find an item or other secret. Items you find can be something as simple as more nuggets, equipable trinkets, single-use items such as books or potions, and so forth. During play, you can also uncover orbs, which raise one ability score when discovered. NPCs may be spoken to and offer hints or quests, with some triggering conversations simply by moving toward them. Occasionally, you'll find shopkeepers that offer various items for sale, mostly consumables. There are, however, guildmasters that offer a choice of mercenaries, allowing you to take one mercenary with you on your travelers to face whatever you run into. These mercenaries may be switched out by a guildmaster over time, and each character generally gets one automatically at the conclusion of their prologue. As for enemies in combat, enemies are represented by sprites on the map, most of which will attempt to charge you and initiate combat. Some of these may actually respawn when you move from map to map, allowing for a limited amount of farming to be done, and if you don't feel like fighting a particular type of enemy, you can always try to avoid it. Combat is roughly turn-based, with each character acting when their timer bar has filled up, according to their agility. Characters may fight, use a skill, use an item, defend, or flee. Using a skill requires AP to use, and defending not only increases your defenses that round, but also refills some of that character's AP, allowing you to use skills again. There's also a skull timer that counts down as the combat goes on automatically. Once it reaches 0, the enemies get a decent buff, and the countdown begins anew, encouraging you to kill enemies swiftly. A character's HP and AP are restored at the end of each combat, as well as any characters that were knocked unconscious, so long as at least one of your characters has survived, so you can go full on out every single time. At the end of a successful combat, you may get an increase in one of your basic stats, hit points, action points, or one of the 4 basic ability scores, attack, defense, agility, and SPC. These seem to be experience-based, it kind of gets less often as time goes on, although I couldn't find anything that specifically notes that during play, and there is no real experience bar. And so play proceeds. You basically explore the world, fight through dungeons and ruins, solve puzzles and quests, and then proceed to the next chapter. There is some indication that due to the parallel nature of the game, effects in one character's story may intersect with the other characters, so that is something to watch out for. As far as graphics and sound go, the game very much feels like something you'd see on the old school NES days, albeit with a bit more color depth. There's that low-res feel to the graphics, basic menuing system, simple animation systems, and the music and sound effects follow suit, being a very chiptune sounding thing. If you can't stand that aesthetic, then this is not the game for you, as it follows through and through. There are, however, some quality of life things that you can find in Pillars of Dust, such as hotkeys to quickly access one of the 4 skills a character can use in combat, as well as a certain degree of hard guidance in areas. To keep you from wandering off in some areas early, the characters in question will simply turn back if you try. This does make things a little bit more linear, but honestly it's kind of welcome. All in all, the gameplay of Pillars of Dust is very streamlined, sort of a classic RPG cycle, taking the classic feel and making it even faster. The storyline is decently well written and has a certain humorous tone to it, but is more complex than most games of that era that it mimics despite the overall humor. It is a decent experience all in all, even if you're not one for silliness, since it really doesn't rely on that like some of these so-called humorous games do. The absurdity isn't the focus of the story, in other words, just a means of presenting it. If you're not a fan of retro RPGs all in all, Pillars of Dust will probably not appeal to you. But if you are, it does make for a well-designed break from the RPG Maker titles that usually dominate the niche. It's set up in a way that encourages quick play sessions, and the way the game's divided between the 2 main characters in the various chapters allows for the story elements to be slowly revealed over time, preserving them. About the only minor complaint I had was in searching for secrets. If you're really aiming for the bonus at the end of each chapter, you're going to be checking every single barrel, pot, bush, and shrub, which can be tedious after a while. For the price overall, though, Pillars of Dust is a solid little game, and I believe it'll appeal to fans of retro-style RPGs as long as they can deal with the aesthetic. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up here. As always, I'll put links to where you can pick it up in the description below. This has been the RPG Crawler with my Indie Game Friday, Pillars of Dust. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. Until next time, take care and goodbye. And if you're still watching this far, I'd like to take a moment to thank those who have supported this channel via Patreon or direct donations throughout the years, without which this channel could not have lasted as long as it has. For those who are feeling particularly generous, you can still support my work through Patreon and now through Subscribestar as well, through the links in the description below.